Hey everyone, welcome to the Captain Drone YouTube channel. My name is Steve, and guess what? It's the year 2025, and DJI has launched a brand new product for the FPV drone world, which is the DJI FPV-04 Air. But wait, there's an even better version. It's called the DJI-04 Air Pro, and guess what? It's in the brand new iFLIGHT Cine long range 7-inch quad that I'm going to talk about today. Now, the manufacturer of this quad is iFLIGHT, and iFLIGHT has a very close working relationship with DJI. Therefore, this is the very first long range, super large quad on the market containing the DJI-04 Pro. Now, iFLIGHT is pretty smart, and they know not everybody needs a massive sized quad for long range. A lot of people like freestyle, so they made the 5-inch Cine Flow quad that has the DJI-04 Pro camera system in it, and it's available today, but I don't have one because they only wanted to send me one, so I got this one because that's what I like. But if you go to the website, you can find the 5-inch quad. Now, the great thing about putting the DJI-04 camera system in a quad like this is because for long range, your video transmission has been increased to 15 kilometers. I'll put what that is in miles on the screen. But if you use the DJI receiver that's also built into the 04 system, well, your range is more like 10 kilometers. And for everybody who's a cinematographer out there, you can now record at 4K 120 frames per second. Every piece of flight footage you're going to see in this video has all been recorded at 4K 120 frames per second. And all that means is it's very smooth, and I can click on a button in my editing software and cause it to go super slow motion smooth. I'll show you that. Now, after you watch my review and you go, wow, I want to get this quad, but you don't have any DJI system and you'd like a different camera system, they are thinking of releasing this with an analog system and maybe even walk snail in the future. Now, to fly this baby, you need a receiver in it, so you can go with the DJI plug-and-play receiver, and that means if you have the FPV Remote 2, it will work and bind with this, or if you have the FPV Remote 3, it will work and bind with this. However, if you want to put ELRS in it, you can get plain old ELRS in any configuration you want, even ELRS diversity. So I flew it using my GX12 by Radiomaster. So in the video, this is what I was using. And from what I understand, you can also get it with a Crossfire receiver. And if you do get it with the DJI-04 Pro camera in it, well then these are the goggles you can use. It's compatible with the following. If you have the DJI goggles 2, it's compatible. If you have the DJI goggles 3, that's what I flew it with, it's compatible. If you have the DJI goggles N3, it's compatible with those, which is pretty cool because these cost next to nothing. And if you have the DJI goggles Integra, it is compatible with those as well. And finally, since this is long range, it requires a 6S LiPo battery, and a big one at that. It can take an 8,000 milliamp hour LiPo battery. I don't have an 8,000 milliamp hour LiPo battery, but they say if you put an 8,000 on this, you can get up to 20 to 25 minutes of flight time. So let me just show you here. This is a 5,000 milliamp hour LiPo battery 6S. Can you imagine the size of an 8,000? So plonk that on there, and look, you still have a bit of space to go to the back to plug in your battery cable. And what's really cool on this, you know, like drones have spark arresters, so when you plug a battery and you don't get that pop sound, this one has a spark arrestor plus. So watch this, I'm gonna plug it in, you won't even hear it. Here we go, plugging the battery in. I plugged it in, and you didn't even hear the pop or anything coming. It's so good. And finally, hidden in the back down here is a GPS unit. You wouldn't even know it's there. Matter of fact, it's one of those drones that's configured right out of the box to not even worry about getting the satellites. If you don't have the satellites, it will still fly, but it gets the satellites super fast. Anyways, I'm talking too much. Let me show you my review of flying this in the super, super duper cold. Check it out. Now, I live in Canada, and it's pretty darn cold at this time of the year. And if you're not familiar with the Canadian cold, well, electronics tend to not work very well when it gets super cold. As a matter of fact, the DJI-04 camera system did not work properly unless I heated it up. And that's because the new DJI-04 system is designed with like a bazillion holes in it so it gets plenty of airflow. And in the Canadian cold weather, those tiny electronics simply freeze up. Here I'm showing you that I also placed a DJI Action 2 camera on the drone, but the camera is facing to the rear. This will provide additional flight footage. You can see what I mean with this camera perspective looking to the rear. Now all I have to do is slap on the goggles, pick up the radio, and go fly. Houston, we are go for launch. It's a dull day for filming, but this is the image at 4K 120 frames per second. It is so cold in my area that the entire river has frozen over. And I will say my fingers on the joysticks are pretty much frozen, so I'm having difficulty flying, but the drone's doing a good job. For this flight, I'm using a 6S 1800 mAh LiPo battery, so my flight time in this freezing cold weather is not going to be very long. Recording at 120 frames per second means I can change it to slow motion, as you see here, and it's silky smooth, super sharp, highly detailed slow motion, and then I go back to normal speed. Now if you're wondering about the brushless motors on this quad, they are rather large. They are iFLIGHT branded 2809 brushless motors, and if I put my thumb next to one of them, you can see the size of the motor. As you can imagine, the props are rather large themselves. They are 7-inch HQ props, and you do get a full spare set in the box. Now I will say I'm really impressed with the image quality coming out of the 04 system. There's a lot of dynamic range here, so you don't get as much darkness or mushiness in the darker areas. Everything looks great. In addition, this large iFLIGHT drone flies silky smooth. You just point the nose in one direction and it carries on in that direction with very minimal input in the joysticks. Now in this review, I did not fly the drone super long range because it was much too cold outside and I didn't have a super large battery for long range. In addition, I did not try out the GPS rescue. I'll save that for a much warmer day of flying. But I can tell you that after flying this drone for several flights, I will say the skill level required to fly this drone is minimal. In other words, if you've been flying an FPV drone for 1 or 2 weeks and you have a little bit of skills, you could probably fly this. It does not require a lot of skills to fly this drone. And if you crash it, it will survive. Check out that carbon fiber frame. Those arms are easily replaceable. And if you're like me and you fly in snowy weather, well, most of the electronics are protected behind these removable covers. The covers pop on and off, and when you remove them, you have access to the flight controller as well as the LED lighting system. Speaking of the flight controller, it is a very advanced Blitz F7 flight controller. For such a large quad, it does do basic freestyle. So if you're into these large style FPV drones that can take a large battery and are designed for cruising around and exploring, I think you'll really like this one. You'll notice in this video I'm trying not to fly over the people that are ice fishing because I don't want to freak them out. As noted at the start of this video, I really like that they place the XT60 plug in the frame and have a spark arrestor on it. In addition, the external heavy-duty camera mount is fixed in place. Another thing I really like is that they put metal around that expensive DJI 04 camera so it gets protected. And as you've seen in the video, the frame is a dead cat design, so the props will not be in the image when you're filming. So I certainly had fun flying this quad, and I'm sure I'm going to have even more fun when the weather warms up and I can do some long distance exploring. Here's some video I took when I first received this quad. There was no snow on the ground. Then it snowed, and here's filming in the same location. Even though this is a large quad, you can fly it in small locations because it's well tuned. Okay, so you're back to me, and the next thing I want to show you is what you get in the box. Check out the size of this box. You know, the props are not on it when you get it, and yet the box still is so large that you would think the props are on it, but that's because it's so big. Alright, here we go with the unboxing. This is the box, and on the side of this box would be the specs of the drone I reviewed in this video. As already noted, my drone has the DJI 04 Pro camera, which is nicely protected by aircraft aluminum. I also have the brand new DJI 04 Pro recording system and transmission system with long-range antennas. I do have an ELRS receiver in mine, so I have an ELRS receiver sticking out the back. These side plates are easily removable, and they do allow LED lights to shine through when you plug in a battery. For accessories, you do receive a spare set of props, as well as battery straps, battery grips, spare screws, documentation on how to bind the receiver to an ELRS radio, a card explaining safety flight tips, a sheet of iFLIGHT stickers, and finally the weight of the drone with no battery is 775 grams. Okay, so you saw the unboxing, and remember I said it was so big, so here it is. And the only quad I have that is similar in size would be the DJI Crocodile. You see, they're similar in size and they can take just as large a battery. So this one here is the brand new one from iFLIGHT, and this is an old one from DJI. This one flies better than this one because this one is newer. Next thing I want to tell you is that in order to fly with an 04 system, well, you have to do the firmware update to your goggles as well as the 04 system, and everything's compatible. Just make sure in your goggles, I did not realize this, there's a new option in the goggles called Canvas, and you can change it to from normal to HD. You have to put it on HD if you want to see the OSD you set up in Betaflight Configurator. I didn't do that. So when I was flying here, check this out. This is all I saw. I couldn't really see the GPS data. I just saw this little arrow in the bottom corner and I thought, well, that's kind of goofy because that's not how I set it up. But then later I realized, you got to go in the goggles. You have to go to canvas mode, and then you have to set that canvas mode to HD. And when you go back and look at your OSD, well, there it is. There's all your GPS data. So make sure you do that. And finally, the last thing I want to say on this quad is that out of the box, it is actually tuned in angle mode. It's tuned to fly out of the box for a rookie. So they know that beginners might buy this because it's pretty cool. I don't think a lot of beginners are going to buy something this big, but for those that do, it's tuned for you. If you're a rookie, this is tuned for you. And I'm going to show you what I mean. So I went in my backyard and I took this, the DJI Dark Star, and I flew it in angle mode, and I tried to keep it hovering straight in the air, but I was moving side to side and up and down and all over the place. This is a really well-tuned quad. I did the same thing with this, and look at the difference. It sits in the air like a rock. It's so perfect. So when I was flying this, you could fly this super fast. Do you know what the top speed on this is? It is 140 kilometers per hour. That is fast. Of course, to get that top speed, you have to take your camera here and point it all the way up max so that it tilts more like this when you're flying. I tried that and I hit a tree. Check this out. I'm flying along super high speed, and I didn't realize how far the arms stick out trying to go by a tree, and you just go so fast and boing, hit the tree. And let me say, there was more damage to the tree than there was to the quad. There's actually nothing wrong with the quad. I don't even have a nick in the props. This thing is built like a tank, so you're not going to damage anything. So the last thing I want to do is put links below to where you can find this on the iFLIGHT website, as well as the 5-inch Cine Flow quad. Go check that out as well. I have no idea what the price is on this because I have the pre-release version, so very little information came my way. I'm learning just as much as you know now that this is out and published. But yeah, go check it out, see if it is for you. Also, if you have questions on this quad, by all means post them below and I'll get back to you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll catch you in a future video with many more cool product reviews. Till then, bye!